Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another board game unboxing. Today I picked up Tiny Towns by Peter McPherson. I got to play a demo of this as well. Basically, it's a resource management town building game featuring these little woodland creatures. So, 45 minutes to play, 1 to 6 players, and ages 14 and up. Basically, everybody starts off with an empty grid here, and you get a bunch of wooden resource tokens, you can see here, as well as these little wooden buildings. And there's a bunch of different cards that you choose from beginning of each game to be able to construct. There's also special buildings. Each player gets one of those, and that building can only be built once. Basic gameplay is on any player's turn, that a player is going to name a resource. There are 5 types of resources, I believe. Each player will take that resource and place it somewhere on their board. And you are placing these resources in such a configuration to complete these buildings. So to complete this little house here, you need to have 2 stone next to a glass. And you can have them in any configuration, so it doesn't need to be across. It could be like I could have stone here, and glass here, and still build that. There's going to be other buildings that have more beneficial effects that would take more resources and so on. It's a pretty interesting and pretty fun game. I think it's fairly simple, but there's a little bit of strategy involved in basically how you lay out the resources and how you lay out your buildings. Certain buildings will score certain ways depending on like what's adjacent to it and things like that. So we're gonna go ahead and get this opened here. And I think this retails for about $40. All right, so here we go. Get that plastic off of it. And we're going to open the box. We're going to take a look at the contents. So we have our instructions. We have our scoring pad here. So depending on what buildings you're using, buildings will score in certain ways. There will only be, in any game, only one type of building that can be this wood piece, only one type of building that can be that wood piece, and so on. And then you score negative points for empty holes on your town. Anything that basically isn't a building is considered to be an empty hole. Even if there's like a resource there that you haven't used, it's an empty hole and is negative points. So there's a little score pad. We have our player boards. So we have, I believe, 6 of these. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 player boards. So 4x4 grids to place your resources and your buildings. We have all of our resources and buildings in here. And there's this wooden hammer. This basically just indicates who the active player is, who is choosing the resource. So all the different wooden cubes for resources and the wooden buildings to represent those buildings. And then we have our building cards. Go ahead and get these open. And one thing I also like is there is a single player variant, I believe, using these cards. You can use this in a single player mode. You can also use it in where nobody chooses resources. Basically, resources get chosen from this deck. You draw a card randomly from the top and place a resource of that type. So basically, you place wheat that turn, for example. And I may grab sleeves for these as well. I think like the Fantasy Flight Tarot size and just standard size cards or sleeves would be good. There we go. Get this open. And each building will have various effects that will happen. Set this in there for just a moment. So, for example, there is going to be a handful of these black buildings, a handful of these yellow buildings, a handful of orange, green, purple, which I believe purple are the special buildings. So each player gets one of these beginning of each game. They can only build this building once, and then it has a certain effect. So, for example, with this obelisk of the crescent, it is this shape here. So you have to have brick, glass, brick, and wheat. And this says you may place all future buildings on any empty square in your town. So normally when you build a building, for example, let's say I'm building a farm. A farm is 2 wheat, 2 wood. and I built it in. I have the resources in these four squares here. So one, two, three, four. I had to place that building in one of the squares that had a resource needed to build it. So, for example, if I build this bank, unless I have it down here, so it's a 3 and 2, I had to have it in either this square, this square, this square, this square, or this square. With this obelisk, though, whoever plays this and builds it, I can have a building in resources in this area, but put the building all the way over here. So that's pretty cool. So there's those buildings. And then each player, again, you can only build these buildings once. And these are the pink towers here represent these. So there's the obelisk of the crescent, the Mandras Palace, Barrack Castle, Shrine of the Elder Tree, the Architects Guild, Statue of the Bondmaker, Grand Mausoleum of the Rodina, Silva Forum, Sky Baths, Grove University, Cathedral of Katrina, Archive of the Second Age, Fort Ironweed, the Star Loom, um, Opalized Palace, and so on. So each player gets one of these beginning of each game. That building can only be built once. And then, with the rest of the building cards, you're going to take one black card. You're going to take one card of every color and lay them kind of above the play area. And those are the buildings that everybody can build that game. So, for example, let's say I'm going to do that as my black. I'll do that as my red. This is my orange. I think I need green and yellow, I still believe. Yep, so there's yellow and green. So there's going to be 5 buildings. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There might be, and I think there might be blue as well. Let me see where. There is one for cottages. I think cottages are available in all the games. Let me see if I can find the cottage. And cottage. So cottage, I believe, is available in all the games. But these would be the 6 possible buildings to build in that one game. And each card is going to have its own like different resource configuration, like that. That's got that. The feast hall is 2 wood and a glass, and it says 2 points plus 1 point if you have more green buildings than the player on your right. Green building can be it's like bars and taverns, like that stuff. There's a bank. There is the granary, which a farm normally is regular. The basic farm is 2 wheat, 2 wood. This is 2 wheat, a wood, and a brick. And it says feeds all buildings in the 8 squares surrounding it. So, for example, cottages. Let me see if I find the cottage here. Cottage takes 3 resources to build. It takes a wheat, a brick, and a glass. And it says 3 points if this building is fed. So, if you just build a cottage and don't have it fed, it's 0 points. But, for example, if you build a farm, it can feed up to 4 cottages. So once it's fed, it's considered to be able to be scored. The tailor, for example, is 1 point plus 1 point for each yellow in the 4 center squares of your town. So in this area. So that's how like certain things being adjacent to other things will score you different points. And here's a cloister. So the cloister is a glass, a brick, a wheat, or a glass, glass, stone, brick, and wood. And it's 1 point for each other building in a corner of your town. So if you put a cloister, basically, you got to have basically the 4 corners. So that'll be worth 4 points because if you have an orange building here, 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 and here, they're 1 point apiece. Plus, it would also probably stack as well because you have this one gives you a point. If you keep building it, you might get more. Feast hall. There's a bank. Again, the granary. A bunch of different other buildings. So here's a well. A well is just 2 resources. This is a wood and a stone, but it has to be adjacent to a cottage to score a point. And I believe in the game, adjacent only counts horizontal and vertical. I don't think it counts diagonally as being adjacent. And then finally, we have this little deck of cards here, which is basically I think this is a single player variant. So you take this deck, shuffle it up, and instead of players naming resources, they would just flip this card over and be like, all right, this round we're taking wood. Next player flips one over. This round we're taking wood again. Gets flipped again. Now we're taking brick. Now we're taking wood again. And we're taking brick again. And we're taking stone. And we're taking stone again. And so on and so forth. So Basically, player names a resource. Each player takes that resource, puts it on their board in any of their spaces, and they are trying to build up these configurations to match cards that are available for that round, that game, such as these guys. And then each player, again, is trying to build their special building, which has various effects. So that lets you place buildings anywhere. This palace is 2 points for each unique adjacent building type. So if you build it, this one you wanted to build more in like a central area because you can get more stuff that's adjacent. So if I build it here and I put a unique building here, 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 and here, I can have 4 adjacent buildings to it, and that would be worth a total of 8 points. Let's see what the Architects Guild takes 5 resources to build, but it's worth 1 point. And when constructed, replace up to 2 buildings in your in your town with any other building types. So if you built, let's say, like built a well and it's not next to a, ends up not being next to a cottage, you can use the ability on here to remove those wells and put other buildings there instead. Statue of the Bondmaker says when another player names a resource, he may choose to place it on a square with a with a cottage. Each of your cottages can hold 1 resource. So basically, it just lets you use up space that may have already been used up, which is pretty good. Because basically, once the building is down, you can't place resources on it unless you have an effect like this guy here. So that is Tiny Towns. I really like it. I might pick up some sleeves to sleeve the cards, but again, it's pretty fast paced as well because it's basically name a resource, place a resource, name a resource, place a resource, build a building, and then basically just play until you can't place any more resources or buildings, and then you total up your score based on the cards and how each one scores a little bit differently. So again, that is Tiny Towns. That's going to do it for this video. I want to thank you for watching. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. We'll be back next time with some more videos. I want to thank you again for watching, and take care. Thanks.